Begin today at the bottom of Kuf Ches Amud Beis, the last line at the Mishnah. Zog the Heilige Mishnah, Hamagadish es Isha. A person divorced his wife. Ve'chzira, and he remarried her. So he remarried her when it's allowed. In other words, she never got married to anybody else in between. He just went and remarried her. So that's allowed. And then he passes away. And now the question is, could the brother do the mitzvah of Yibum? Says the Mishnah, Muteres liyavam. She is allowed to go and get married to the Yavam. The mitzvah of Yibum applies there just like any other case. The fact that there was past history here, that he once married her before and then divorced her, now married her again, doesn't make a difference. Now, the husband passed away and the brother does the mitzvah of Yibum. But Rabbi Eliezer, oiser. However, Rabbi Eliezer says it's not allowed. So what's the chiddush over here of what this Mishnah is saying? Why would I think there should be no mitzvah of Yibum here? Because he once was married to her before. So this is connected, we'll see a little bit of this in the Gemara, but this is connected to something that we learned earlier on in the Masechta regarding the mitzvah of Yibum. The Gemara before brought a machlokes. When does the status of Yibum begin? Do I say that the Yibum begins from the time of Misa, when the husband passes away, that's when the mitzvah of Yibum begins, and we have to look at the status of this brother, if he's allowed to marry this woman, from that moment, from the moment of the Misa. Why? Because the Misa is the time when the actual mitzvah of Yibum begins. But then the Gemara brought that there's another opinion that says the Nisuim Harishainim, the original marriage, that's really the source of the mitzvah of Yibum. Every single time a person gets married to someone, even though there is no actual mitzvah of Yibum at that point, but ultimately every mitzvah of Yibum goes back to the fact that this person was married to her and then he died without children, and that causes the Yibum. So the whole mitzvah of Yibum really starts from the marriage. And therefore, you have to go back to the first marriage and see if this woman is allowed to get married to this brother now, based on the status that she has in connection with the original marriage. And if so, in this case, going back to the original marriage here, what happened with after the first marriage? He divorced her. The halacha is, once a person divorces his wife, the brother is also to marry that woman. Grusha is achiv. You're not allowed to marry a grusha of a brother. So over here, if the mitzvah of Yibum, the status of this woman regarding the mitzvah of Yibum is going to be determined based on the original marriage, which is the source of how Yibum all starts. So if so, going back to the first marriage, he can't marry her. This is grusha is achiv. This is a woman that he divorced. So that's what the Tanakam is saying, that it doesn't matter. But still, we look at the mitzvah of Yibum, what happened now when he passed away, and now it was his wife, and he can do Yibum. But Rabbi Eliezer says it's not allowed. Okay, another case is similar to this. Similar is also when a person divorces a Yisayma. So this is going back to everything we were talking about in this Pedic. A Yisayma, a Ketana, that her mother or brother married her off, and the whole marriage is Midrabanan. So this husband was married to this Ketana, and he divorced her, and then ve'chzira, he married her again. So Tanakama says the same like he said before, Muteres liyavam. You look at the status of what happened now when he passed away, and he was married to her, and now the brother does the mitzvah of Yibum. But Rabbi Eliezer says it's asa, same like he said before, you have to look at the first Nisuin, that's the source of when the Yibum starts, and based on the status of the first Nisuin, he divorced her. So you can't go and marry a woman that your brother divorced. Third case, ketana sheisiya via. A ketana that the father married her off. Now, when a father marries off a ketana, that's not a marriage midrabanan. That's a real marriage minatayre. Only a father has the koyach to marry off his daughter a ketana minatayre. And then v'nizgarsha, she got divorced. The husband divorces her. So what happens now? Ki yisayma b'chayav. Once she got divorced, even though her father's still alive, she's out of the father's possession. The father can't marry her off anymore, because she was once married before and got divorced. She doesn't go back to her father's possession. And at the same time, her father's alive, but she's like a Yisayma b'chayav, that now, who can marry her off? Only her brother or her mother, or maybe even the father, but not minatayra though. She's not anymore in the father's possession. So what happens if v'hechzira? So now this husband married her again, but now the thing is, when he marries her a second time, it's not the same like the first marriage. The first marriage was a marriage minatayra. Father married her off. The second marriage is only a marriage midrabanan, because the father couldn't marry her off a second time. And then he passes away, and now the question is there a mitzvah of Yibum here? Here, everybody would agree that there is no mitzvah of Yibum. Why not? Because everybody would agree, since it's only the first marriage, which was a real marriage minatayra, and the husband divorced her, so this woman is Grushas Achiv. The fact that he later married her again and now he died, and there should be a mitzvah of Yibum because of the second marriage, but that second marriage is only midrabanan. It can't undo the previous marriage, which was a marriage minatayra, and the husband divorced her. So here everybody would agree that she's Grushas Achiv, and there's no mitzvah of Yibum. Zok to Gemara, Omar Eifa. Eifa said, so the main thing the Gemara will focus on is to explain Rabbi Elazar's opinion. Gemara is going to bring three different shatim here. So Eifa said, my time at Rabbi Elazar. Why does Rabbi Elazar say, in this case here, when there was a first marriage and a second marriage, and there was divorce after the first marriage, that there's no yibum if he dies after the second marriage? So what's the reason? Because for 1 hour, for one moment, this woman became asa to you because she was grushas achiv, your brother divorced her from the first marriage. So once that issa took effect, it doesn't go off, it doesn't change. In other words, the point of here is, like I said before, we determine the status of yibum based on the marriage from the beginning, the first marriage. We don't look at the status of yibum only from the time when he passed away. That's the reason for Rabbi Elazar. So if so, the Rabbanan said le'efa to efa about this reason. If so, chalitza nami loy to buy. If this is mamisha erva, based on this that your brother divorced her before, so you should not need any chalitza either. And if you'll say hochanami, maybe that's not true. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't do yibum and you don't need to do chalitza either. But Vatani, we learned in Abraisa, Mishum Rabbi Elazar, Amru, was said in the name of Rabbi Elazar, Chaylet says that in this case you can't do Yibum, but you do have to do Chalitza. Why do you have to do Chalitza? It's just an erve, and it has no shaykhs to the mitzvah of Yibum b'chlal. So Eifa says, Rabbi Elazar, lo yadayna my timer. What Rabbi Elazar said over here, that there's no Yibum, but you still have to do Chalitza, I can't explain his reason. Amar Abaye, so Abaye explains, Hainu time of Rabbi Elazar. Here, this is the reason for what Rabbi Elazar said. Mesap Galei, Rabbi Elazar actually has a suffix about this. What determines the status of the mitzvah of Yibum over here? He has a suffix. What's the suffix? Imisam apeles. Do I say that it's at the time when the husband, the brother, passed away, that determines the status of the chalitza? Or we have to go back to the first marriage to determine whether this woman is fit for chalitza, for the mitzvah of Yibum for you. So now, what's the suffix here? What comes out from this suffix? If it's the death of the brother that makes the status of the mitzvah of Yibum, so haram yekamela Yibum. At this point, when the brother passed away, was his regular wife, and there should be a mitzvah of Yibum. The previous history that he once divorced her before shouldn't matter. But if it's the first marriage that is the source for the Yibum, and that determines the status of this woman, so amdal of sha'achas b'isa. Based on the first marriage, what happened? He divorced her, and then it's you can't marry a woman that your brother divorced. So because he has a suffix, you can't do Yibum, but at the same time, you have to do Chalitza. Because could be it's the Misa that's Mapelas, and so you can't just let her go free without anything. Because if it's the Misa, so then she's not an erva for you, and you would have the mitzvah of Yibum. So because he has a suffix, so that's why you still have to do Chalitza. Rava says, L'oilam, the truth is no. Pshita l'Rabbi Elazar, the Misim Apeles. Rabbi Elazar really agrees to the premise that the Tanakama holds, that it's the time of Misa that determines whether she's fit for the mitzvah of Yibum or not. So then why is it that he says that there's no Yibum here? At this point, there's a regular mitzvah of Yibum. Miyu, however, there's a Gzeira Madarabanan. And the Gzeira is, Hakel B'kiyim B'gerishin. Everybody is aware of the fact that your brother divorced her. But people are not necessarily aware of the fact that you remarried her. And therefore, if you're going to go and do mitzvah of Yibum, people are going to say, look, you're doing Yibum for a woman that your brother divorced, and you're not allowed to marry this woman that your brother divorced, and people won't know that you remarried her. Frekta Gemara, why do you say this? Adarab, on the contrary, Chazara, if you remarry her, that's something that people should be more aware of. Kivin the Yasva to say, if she's now living with him again, she's sitting with him, it's like Kala, there's more of a rumor about this. Everybody should know that he's living with her again. So the Gemara says, not necessarily. Mi lo yaskinon. Wouldn't we also be speaking about a case, the Hadra Borta, he remarries her at night, and v'shachav b'tzafra, he passes away the next morning, and nobody was aware of the fact that he remarried her, because he wasn't living with her for any time period. So that's the gzeira of our Mishnah. The gzeira is that it's going to look like you're marrying a woman that your brother divorced, and people don't chapsich that you remarried her. Another pshat here, a third pshat. Where are we holding over here? A third pshat or a fourth pshat? We had Eifa, and then we had Abaye, Rava, a fourth pshat. And then Rava, and now Ravashi. Ravashi says, the reason for Rabbi Lazar's opinion is also a gzeira midrabanan. He agrees to the Tanakama that it's the Misa that determines whether she's fit for the mitzvah of Yibum or not. But there's the following gzeira. The Gazar Hani, he's geyser these cases that we're speaking about. In other words, a regular case where a person divorced his wife and then remarried her, Mishum Yisayma b'chayeya v'echzira. Because of the last case in the Mishnah, when the first marriage was a marriage minat Torah, because the father married his daughter off, and that's a marriage minat Torah. And then the second marriage was a marriage midrabanan. When the second marriage is only a marriage midrabanan, it can't undo the status of the previous marriage, which is that now she's a gerusha of the brother. So because of that case, there were geyser that in any other case where your brother that passed away once divorced her before, there should be no mitzvah of yibum. It's all excited because of that case. Hachanami mistavre, and it's logical to say that this is the reason for Rabbi Lazar diktani sefer, because of the case that the sefer, the Mishnah, that it says this case. So it says katana sheisi avia, that the father married her off, and that's a marriage minat Torah, and then when his garsha she got divorced, ki yisayme b'chayi yahav, she's like a yisayme in the lifetime of the father, and v'chzira, he remarries her now with Rabbanon, and he passes away. Divrei akol shasur liyavam. Everybody would agree that there's no mitzvah of yibum. The previous status that he divorced this wife remains. So the Gemara says, why b'chlal does the Mishnah have to say this case? Hi, Maila Memra. What is the chiddush in this case? Pshita, isn't it obvious? It's self-understood that if the first marriage is with Torah and the second marriage is only with the Rabbanon, the second marriage can't undo the status of a grusha of the first marriage. Elolav hakam ashmalon. So it's logical to say that the only chiddush here is that to tell us the time of the Rabbi Lazar, that earlier in the Mishnah when Rabbi Lazar says that there's no mitzvah of yibum when this person once before divorced this woman, that his reason is the gazar hanach mishum hai. That in those cases, the reason why it's not allowed is only because of a gezeda, because of this case, that everybody would agree that there's no mitzvah of yibum. Shma mina. So this proves that that is the reason of Rabbi Lazar. Tanya Kvasei de Ravashi, similar, we could see in a Braisa, learned like Ravashi's reason that it's all a gzeira. Gzeira because of this last case here. What does it say in the Braisa? Maidim Chachamim Rabbi Lazar. Chachamim would agree to Rabbi Lazar regarding this concept. When a person once divorced his wife before, the katana sheisiya viyav and his garsha, if it was a katana that first her father married her off and then she got divorced, so she is a Yisayma in the lifetime of the father, and now nobody can marry her off minat Torah. And now v'chzira, he marries her again with the Rabbanon. Shasura liyavam, she's going to be asa to the yavam if this husband passes away. Mipnei shegerisheha gerishin gemurin. The first divorce was a real gerishin because that was a real marriage minat Torah. Ve'ein chazarasa chazara gamura. And when he remarries her, the second marriage is not a real marriage; it's only a marriage with the Rabbanon, so it can't undo the previous marriage. Now the Braisa continues, when do I say that the first marriage and the first Gerishin is a real Gerishin, and the second one can't undo it, is if she got divorced when she was a Ketana. And then Vechzira Keshi Ketana. He remarries her when she's still a Ketana, so the second marriage is only a marriage with Rabbana. If she got divorced when she's a Ketana, and Vechzira Keshi Gedaila. But he remarried her when she was a Gedaila. So now the second marriage is also a valid full marriage minat Torah. So the second marriage could undo the first marriage. Inami Hechzira Keshehi Ketana. He did remarry her when she was still a Ketana, but V'godlatzlai. She remained married to him even when she was a Gedaila, and at that point the marriage becomes a full marriage minat Torah. Umeis, and then this husband passes away. So then, if so, then you could do either chalitza or yibum, because if the second marriage is minat Torah, according to the Tanakama, it undoes the status of this woman from the first marriage that she got divorced from. Mishum Rabbi Lazar Amru, but Rabbi Lazar says, like he said in the Mishnah, chalitza v'loy misyabemes. Even when you have a full second marriage, it doesn't matter. There's still a gzeira here. There's still a gzeira that you should not do a yibum, only chalitza. So from the Braise, the fact that it starts off with this whole Meidim Chachamel Rabbi Lazar, and then it brings what Rabbi Lazar argued on, you see that these two things are connected. That it's all excited because of this case where everybody would agree that you can't do Yibum. So Rav asked Rav Nachman regarding Rabbi Lazar's opinion that said that it's all excited, that were concerned that you shouldn't be allowed to get married to this woman that your brother once divorced because of a case where everybody would agree it's not allowed. The question is, tzarasa maho. So this woman herself, we know there's exeda for her. How about the second wife? Do I say that the second wife also can't do any yibum either? Amalei, so Rav Nachman answered, he gufa gezeda. Regarding this woman herself, the only reason she can't do yibum is all exeda mit rabbanon. We're going to make a secondary gzeira and say that even the tzara, the second wife, should also not be allowed to do yibum. Why should we go so far? Fragt the Gemara, but what Tanya we learned in the Braise, Mishum Rabbi Lazar Amru, it was said in the name of Rabbi Lazar regarding this halacha, he v'tzairasa chayletzes, that both she, this woman that was once divorced before, and the second wife as well, chayletzes, will do chalitza. So how do you understand the words of this Braise? He v'tzairasa salkadaitach. Do you think that this Braise literally means that both of them need chalitza? You never have to do chalitza for two women. Elalav, don't you think what is this Braise saying? Oihi, oitzarasa chayletzes. That either for her or for the tzara as well, you could only do chalitza and not yibum. So don't we see from here that the gzeira goes so far that even the tzara can't do yibum either, only chalitza? Says the Gemara, no. Lav terutzik kametartzis. Don't you see that the words of the Braise are not precise? You had to play around, you had to fix the words of the Braise. So if so, teritzachi. So answer and explain the words of the Braise as follows. He chayletzes. She herself could only do chalitza. She was once divorced before, so there's exeda, there's no yibum, so there's only chalitza. Tzarasa, but the second wife, oy chaletzes, oy misabemes. The second wife could do either chalitza or yibum. So therefore, it fits with what Rav Nachman said before. Sagt Heilige Mishnah, Shnei Achen Nesuin L'Shtei Achayis. You have two brothers that are married to two sisters. Ketanais, and both of these sisters are ketanais, meaning that the marriage of both of these brothers are just a marriage midrabanan. And one of them passes away. And now the question is, could the brother do the mitzvah of yibum over here or not? So what's the basic halacha regarding yibum? That there's an erva of achais ishtai. You can't marry, if you're already married to a sister, you can't do yibum for this woman that's your wife's sister. So in this case, halazu teitze mishum achais isha. So therefore, there's no yibum over here. And she's potter from Yibum and Chalitza because of a Chais Ishtai. I mean, we're talking over here all about a marriage midrabanan and a Yibum midrabanan. This whole thing is all with Ketanis, which is all midrabanan. But midrabanan, there also will be no mitzvah of Yibum here because it's an erva of a Chais Ishtai. The same thing applies also to another type of marriage, which is only midrabanan, which is two women that are chareshes, deaf mute. So minatayre, they can't accept any kedushin. They have no das to accept kedushin. But midrabanan, they were misakin for a chareshes that she should be able to get married, just like a katana. But so the same halacha would apply over there. Now another case, gedayla or katana. One brother is married to a sister, which is a full marriage minatayre. It's a gedayla. Another brother is married to a sister, which is only a katana. So now what happens? Meis baila shel katana. If the husband of the katana passes away, and now the brother that's married to a sister, which is a real marriage, a marriage minatayre, has to do yibum for this katana, but he can't. It's his wife's sister. It's a erva. So teitzei katana mishum achais isha. So this case is simple. He can't do yibum for this katana because it's his wife's sister, and he's fully married to this wife. It's a marriage minatayre. She's a gedayla, the one that he's married to. Meis baila shel gedayla. But what if it would be the reverse? The one that's married to the gedayla passed away. Now the brother that's married to the katana has to do yibum to the sister. And now the issue over here is that the marriage that he's married to her sister, this katana is not a real marriage minatayre. It's only a marriage midrabanan. Does that prevent him of do yibum or chalitza? What do we do now? So there's three opinions here. Rabbi Eliezer says, we teach the katana that she should reject her marriage, because this whole marriage is just midrabanan and she could reject the marriage. And once she rejects the marriage, so now you'll be able to do yibum for this gedayla that's waiting for yibum here. Okay? That's a simple eitzah. Rabbi Gamliel says, no, we don't teach her to do this. If she chooses to refuse the marriage, so then, okay, you'll be able to do Yibum for the Gedaila. But Vimlav, if she does not choose to be Mimayin, so then, Tamtin, she's going to have to wait, Ache Tagdil, V'teitse halazu mishum achaisisha. And she's going to have to wait until this Gedaila that you're waiting to do Yibum for will then have to leave because of a chaisisha. Once she becomes a Gedaila, once this katana that you're married to now becomes a Gedaila, now this marriage will become a marriage minatayra. Once it becomes a marriage minatayra, then this other woman that is waiting for Yibum will now not have the mitzvah of Yibum anymore because of a chaisishtay. Okay, second. Okay, that's Rabbi Gamliel's opinion. Rabbi Yeshua says, Eloi al ishtay, Eloi al eshes achiv. It's oi to him. It's like woe to him for his wife that he's married to, and woe to him for the wife of his brother that he has to do yibum for. He can't be married to either one of them. Why not? So first of all, with the words of the Mishnah, Moitzies ishtay beget. He's going to have to divorce his wife with a get. And also, ve'eshes achiv, and his brother's wife, he's not going to be able to do yibum for her either, b'chalitza. He's going to have to do chalitza. So Rashi explains, there's a few details over here in what Rabbi Yeshua is saying. Number one, Rabbi Yeshua holds that it's not an option to try to convince her to do miyun, because we don't want to convince her to do miyun. This is similar to what Rabbi Gamliel already said. We don't look to convince her to do miyun. The Gemara will explain why not. That's number one. Number two, why can't he continue being married to his wife? So this goes back to something we learned before in the Masechta, which is called Yesh Zika. The very fact that you have a Zika to your wife's sister stops you now from being allowed to continue being married to your wife. Because the Zika is like you're to some degree married to a sister, so you can't live with either one of them. So you can't be married to your wife. You're going to have to divorce your wife. And even after you divorce your wife, you still are not going to be able to do Yibum to the other wife, because there's also a isser of achais grusha. You're not allowed to marry her. Even a woman that you once were married to and you divorced her, you're not allowed to marry your sister. So even after you divorce your current wife, you're not going to be able to do yibum for her sister because it's still achais grusha. So either way, in such a kind of situation, you're going to lose your wife and you're not even going to be able to get married to the sister either. That's according to Rabbi Yeshua.
You allowed to marry two sisters?
Huh?
You allowed to marry two sisters?
No, of course not.
So
of course not.
Where's the Zika?
There is a Zika over here. The Zika. No, there is a Zika automatically. There's a Zika automatically that happens through the Yibum. And what the Zika does is, it takes away your ability to continue living with your current wife. Yeah, yeah, that's what Rabbi Yeshua says. Rabbi Gamliel before disagreed with this. Rabbi Gamliel says, the current wife that you're married to, you can continue living with. Why? Because there's another sister that has a Zika now to you. But that ain't Zika. He says the fact that there's another wife that's waiting for Yibum does not disturb your present marriage. But Rabbi Yeshua says this sister now that fell for Yibum disturbs your current marriage. So you have to divorce her, and also for the new woman here that's waiting for Zika, you're going to have to give chalitza. So you lose both. Is what?
Does Zika when there's a marriage mitzvah?
I can't hear.
Does Zika when there's a marriage mitzvah?
Yeah, I guess so. That's what it comes out of. Yeah, there's a Zika even from the Rabbanan as well. Yeah.
When the grusha dies, then he can do yibum to the...
No, because that's a chayz grushasa. You're not...
If she died,
if she died, then he will be able to do yibum for her, yeah. If she dies, correct. Yeah, but that's when we're talking about over here that she doesn't die, yeah.
He divorces her, and then...
If she passes away one day, okay, but
because she's stuck.
Well, he gives her chalitza. He did the second one, he gives her chalitza, and that's it. Yeah, she doesn't have to wait. Zok to Gemara. Umi shari, are you allowed to convince a woman to be memayin? Right? The Mishnah said, Rabbi Eliezer said, did you teach her to refuse her marriage? Are you allowed to do this? V'atani bakapara. Bakapara said the following thing. Lo'olam yidbak adam b'shloishet dvarim. There are three things that a person should attach himself to. V'yisrachek b'shloishet dvarim. And there are three things you should stay away from. Yidbak b'shloishet dvarim. The three things you should connect yourself to is b'chalitza. You should always do chalitza and not yibum. Ba'avas shalim. Always bring peace between people. Ba'afaras nadarim, and to annul vows. And v'yisrachek b'shloishet dvarim. Three things you should stay away from. Minam miyun. One of them is miyun, that you should not have a woman refuse her marriage when she's a katana. Mina piktainis, don't accept a deposit, things that people give you to guard for them, don't accept this. Umina harvainis, and also to be a guarantor for a loan. The Gemara is going to explain all these details here. But the point is, we see here that miyun is something you're supposed to stay away from. So why does our Mishnah say that we convince this katana to be memayin and her husband in order for her to be able to do the mitzvah of yibum with the gedayla that he has to? And says the Gemara, miyun the mitzvah shani. If the miyun is for the purpose to enable him to do the mitzvah of yibum, that's a different story. In a regular case, you don't want her to do miyun, but here you're enabling a mitzvah. Gufa, going back to this itself here that Bar Kapara said. So Tani Bar Kapara, lo'elam yidbak adam shloisha dvarim, you should connect the three things, which is b'chalitza. First thing it said was, you should do chalitza and not yibam. Why is this? Ka'abishal, like Abishal said, we learned this earlier in the Masechta, the Tanya, Abishal lo'ime hakainis es yivimtoi l'shem noi. Person that marries his yivama just for her beauty, or l'shom ishus, or for having a wife, meaning he wants people just to say, I'm married, I have a wife. Or l'shum davarach, or any other purpose, not for the mitzvah. Ki'ilu pegeya be'erve, it's almost like he is having a relation with someone that's forbidden for him. It's like Eishes Achiv. He's not doing it for the mitzvah, so it's just the erve. And the Karev be'ein aliyas avlat mamzer. And it's almost like this child born would be a mamzer. So therefore, according to Abishal, it's very difficult to fulfill the mitzvah of Yibam. It has to be very pure, just l'shem mitzvah. So therefore, it's better to do chalitza. Ba'ava shalit. A person should always look to make peace between people. The Chsiv, that's a befedish pasuk. It says, Bake shalom v'retfeyu. Seek out peace, run after peace. Now, in connection to this, the Gemara brings, V'amar Abavo, Asya redifa redifa. I learn out the lashon that it says here, retfeyu, to run after peace, from another term of redifa that the Torah says, Ksivacha bake shalom v'retfeyu. Ksivasam, there's another pasuk where it says, Reidiv tzedakah v'chesed, person that runs after tzedakah and chesed, Yimtza chayim tzedakah v'kovid. So Rashi says, Chaim and tzedakah refers to the life in Olam Haba, and Kovid refers to the Kovid that a person gets in Olam Hazeh. It's like what we say every morning from the Mishnah, that there are certain things that the Keren Kayemes Olam Haba and the Yoichel Periseim by Olam Hazeh. The second thing it said in the Rabbi Kapara said, Bafaras Nedarim. Person should always annul his vows. Rab Nosson, this is like what Rab Nosson says. The Tanya Rab Nosson, a person that makes a neder, Kilu Bona Bama. It's like he built a bama, a place to bring a carbon outside of the Beis HaMikdash in the time when you were not allowed. So in other words, making a neder is not a positive thing. And a person that goes ahead and fulfills the neder, that's even worse. Kilu hikriv aleh carbon. Not only did you build that bama, which in itself is not allowed, but it's as if you actually brought a carbon on this bama outside the Beis HaMikdash, which is yet a second aveda. What's the problem of making a neder? So in the Rishayim it says the reason is because when a person makes a neder, sometimes it becomes very hard to fulfill. B'shas you make a neder, you're usually inspired with something, and then afterwards it becomes very hard to fulfill, and you can very easily not fulfill your neder. So therefore it's not a good idea to make a neder. And even if a person fulfills a neder, it's even a bigger problem, because then you become accustomed to making the darim. So therefore it's even a bigger issue. That's the simple pshat of the Gemara. But in Chassidus, the pshat that's brought is because dayach masha asra Torah. If the Torah says that certain things are asr, and there are certain things that are permitted, there's a reason why the Torah wants it to be permitted. Because that's part of your avodah in the world, to engage with these inyanim and olam hazeh and elevate them. And making the darim is going against what the Eibishter really wants from a person. There's certain situations that a person has to make a neder, but usually a person should not make a neder. Weiter, the Gemara says, it said, V'yisrachik mi shloisha dvarim, should stay away from three different things. Mina miyunin, person should stay away from miyun. Why? Because Dilma, perhaps, Godla, this woman that was once married to this man, and she refused that marriage. Now she becomes older, and she's already married to someone else, and then she regrets the fact that she left her previous husband. And what happens? The previous husband gets wind of this, and he's going to cause trouble for the second marriage. So anytime she leaves a previous marriage and gets remarried, this could always be a source for problems. So therefore you should try not to be memayin in a marriage that you're in. And also not to take a deposit. Why not? What's the problem? So the Gemara says it's talking about a specific case. Bebar Masa. It's an individual that lives together with you in the same city. And it's in a case, the Beisei ki Beisei, Dami, that your house is like his house. He's comfortable walking into your house at any time. So Rashi says what could happen is, this person gives you a pekadon, he walks into your house, he can slip the pekadon out of your house, and then he comes and he asks you, give me back my pekadon. And he really took it himself. So such a case is not a good idea to take a pekadon for this person. Minoi Ravain, and not to be a guarantor on a loan. So the Gemara says also, it's speaking about in a specific case. But Arve Shaltzion, it's those guarantors of this city called Shaltzion. And the guarantors of that city, they would go and collect the loan from the guarantor before they would even go to the borrower himself. So that's the guarantor that we're speaking about over here. The Gemara explains. There's a pasuk that says, Reya Yeroya, that it's a bad thing, ki orev zar. When you have a stranger that's a orev, that's a guarantor. What is this pasuk speaking about? So he explains. Ra achara tovai, there's a bad and a bad again that comes for two situations. Number one, lemekable geidim, when you accept geidim. And number two, ula arve shaltzion. When it says the pasuk of orev, it says orev zar, so it refers to zar being megayer someone. And it also refers to a person that becomes a guarantor like they did it in Shaltzion. And then the Gemara says there's a third thing, and this actually goes on the end of that pasuk. The Gemara there didn't quote it, but at the end of that pasuk it says, V'soine toikim beiteyach. So the Gemara darshan is u'letekeya atzmoi ledvar halacha. A person that sticks himself into a subject of halacha is also a problem. The Gemara will explain exactly what that means. So first of all, what's the issue of accepting geidim? The Kable Geidim, the issue of accepting Geidim is Karab Chelbai. Like Rab Chelbai said, Rab Chelbai, Koshem Geidim li Yisrael kesapachas ba'oir. The Geidim are bad for Klal Yisrael, like a person that has a tzaras on his body. And the reason for this is because we're talking about a ger that's not careful and doesn't know how to be Mekayim mitzvahs, so therefore it's not good for Klal Yisrael. And B'chlal Taisus over here says that this whole thing that you should not be Mekabel Geidim is only if you Mekabel Geidim in a haste, without first pushing them off and giving them time to learn and know. But in a case where a person is being rejected and still he wants to be Megayed and he's Mekabel all the mitzvahs properly, so then there's nothing wrong with a ger. Arvi Shaltziyin, what does Arvi Shaltziyin mean? So the Gemara uses an interesting expression. The Avdi Shlof Dutz. They Shlof means to remove yourself. These lenders, they remove themselves from the borrower. They don't bother going to collect their money from the borrower. And dutz, and instead they go and they harass the guarantor instead. Sticking yourself into a dvar halacha. What's the problem with this? It sounds like a very good thing. So the Gemara explains that Tanya we learned in the Braisa, Rabbi Yosi said, a person that comes and says that I only have Torah, I only learned Torah, so I ain't learned Torah. Again, let me do this again. A person that comes and says, I did not learn Torah in my lifetime. So ein le Torah, he gets no reward for learning Torah. So the Gemara asks, of course, pshita, if he didn't learn, he doesn't get reward for it. Ella rather, a person that says, I only learned Torah. So that ain't le Torah, he only gets a reward for learning Torah and not for anything else. Says the Gemara, Hanami pshita. That's also obvious. If he didn't fulfill any mitzvahs, why should he get a reward for anything other than learning Torah? Ella rather, da filut Torah ein le. Person that learned only Torah and did not fulfill mitzvahs, so even the Torah that he learned, he doesn't get any reward for it. My time, why? Amar Papa, Amakra, the pasuk says, Olimadatem va'asisem. You learn and you fulfill. If you're fulfilling what you learned, so then the learning matters, counts. If a person does not fulfill what he learned, so then the learning that he does not count. And this is brought in Lakut Torah, different places in Chassidus, but this is an important thing. When you get to Limud Torah, even though there's a lot of places where it says that there's different kinds of Yidden. There's the Yidden that belong to Shevet Yisachar, which are Yeshvei Oyel, they're more learning, and then there's people that are more Zvulun, and they're more into Maisim Tovim, or Bechlal, into Asek. So you could think, a person could say to himself, every person in Klal Yisrael belongs to a different category. So if I just learn Torah, that's good for me. So the Gemara is saying, no, even a Yid that his Ikir Inyan is limited Torah, but he can't be satisfied just with learning Torah. There also has to be the fulfillment of mitzvahs as well. Even though it's not your nature, even though it's not your Ikir. There has to be included of both. And otherwise, even the Torah you have is not worth anything. Another pshat, going back to the lashon that we said before, really it's like we said before, which is person that said that I only learned Torah, so he only gets a reward for learning Torah. And what's the chiddush here? The chiddush here is the kamigma la'achrini. He's teaching Torah to others, and even though he himself does not fulfill what he learned, but va'azli va'avdi, the others that he teaches, they go and fulfill what he teaches them. So Mao the Taime, I would think to say, Isle Agre Lididei, so he gets reward for this, that they at least fulfill what he teaches them, even though he himself doesn't. Kamash Malan. So the chiddush over here is that if this person learns and he does not fulfill what he himself is learning, the fact that others do, that doesn't count for him. Vibaiseme, another pshat of what tekei atzma ledvar halacha means. Why is it negative? B'dayane the asi dina lekamei. We're talking about a judge, a dayan, that a din Torah comes in front of him. V'gamar halacha. So this dayan learned halacha. Umidami milsa lemilsa. And he starts comparing one case to another to come to a conclusion regarding this question. But v'isle rabba. He has his teacher there in the city that he could ask this question to. V'layazil mashal. He doesn't go and ask this question. So in such a case where you have to start comparing from one case to another and you're not sure if you're right or not, he should go and ask, and he didn't go and ask. For always, a dayan that has to paskin a halacha, and he has to be sure that what he's saying is right, he should always see himself as if he has a sword that's between his thighs. Meaning if he veers off a tiny drop from the truth, he'll die. He has to be mamish, what a paskins has to be precisely true. And Gehenim psuchel mitachtav, and there's a Gehenim open right below him that he could fall into. Shenema, the pasuk says, Zine mitasa shel Shlomo, the bed of Shlomo Melech. So the Gemara here is darshaning this lashon of mitasa shel Shlomo, referring to the Beis HaMikdash. Shishim gebayrim saviv lo megebayr Yisrael. There are the mighty ones amongst Yidden that are there. So Rashi says the Gemara is darshaning the gebayrim, referring to the Dayanim, the Sanhedrin that are on the Beis HaMikdash. And mipachat baleilas, they fear from the night. What is the night they fear from? Mipachat shel Gehenim shadayim l'layla. They fear Gehenim, which is similar to night. A rav that paskins a din, in a din Torah, he has to be very careful how he paskins. Going back to what it said in the Mishnah, Rabbi Gamliel Omer im mian of a chulu. So Rabbi Gamliel said that we wait. So again, what the case over here was that one brother was married to a Gedolah, another brother was married to a Ketana, and the brother that was married to a Gedolah passed away, and now the brother that's married to a Ketana has to do Yibum, but he's married to this Ketana, so he can't marry the sister. It's the sister we're speaking about. So what did Rabbi Gamliel say? We wait until she becomes a Gedolah. Once she becomes a Gedolah, so now it turns into a real full marriage minat Torah, and then the sister is potter from any Yibum or Chalitza. So now, Rabbi Elazar asked Rav, how do we understand this concept? My time with Rabbi Gamliel. What's the reason of Rabbi Gamliel? Is it Mishum de Kesavar that he holds Kitushe Ketana Mitlit Tolu? The Kiddushim of a Ketana. We're talking over here about this Kiddushim midrabanan of the Ketana. So Mitlit Tolu, it's sort of suspended, meaning it's sort of like a half Kiddushin. It's a midrabanan Kiddushin. And then V'chigodla, when she becomes a Gedolah, Godli Bahada, her marriage matures along with her, and that, in other words, what happens is automatically this Kiddushin turns into a Kiddushin minat Torah, and afal gav deloy baal. Even if this husband, after she became a Gedolah, never had relations with her now again yet, but still that marriage automatically matures and becomes a marriage minat Torah. And Rashi actually goes a step further. Rashi says that now what happens is, retroactively, this marriage from when she was a Ketana turns out to be a real marriage, as we see that he continues living with her, even though he wasn't Bailer, but he continues being married to her after he's a Gedolah. Is that the reason of Rabbi Gamliel? So the point that the Gemara is saying, according to this tzad, is that now it comes out that you were fully married to this wife as a real marriage even before the zika to the sister began. Because now retroactively it comes out that you were really married to her. So therefore the sister automatically has no mitzvah of Yibum at all. That's one way how to look at it.
She didn't have to wait till now.
She
didn't have to wait till now.
Well, she has to wait till now because if it goes retroactively, but if you don't wait until you become a Gedolah, so then the marriage is still a marriage of a Ketana. Or perhaps the pshat of Rabbi Gamliel is, it doesn't go back retroactively, but Mishum de Kesavar, B'chlal, Rabbi Gamliel holds, HaMekadesh, Achais Yevama, Nifteri Yevama V'holchala. In any case, not only in this case, if you have a woman that's waiting for you for Yibum, and instead of doing the mitzvah of Yibum for this woman, you went and you married her sister. After the zika of that Yibum began already. You went and married her sister. Now that you married her sister, so the one that's waiting for you for Yibum becomes potter, because now you can't do Yibum anymore. So that's even after the fact you can go and do such a thing. Maybe that's what Rabbi Gamliel holds. So therefore over here, what that would mean is, I baal in, Eloi baal loy. This that Rabbi Gamliel says, that the marriage of a Ketana, when she becomes a Gedolah, this marriage matures, it becomes into a marriage minat Torah. It doesn't automatically become a marriage minat Torah. And it doesn't retroactively become a marriage minat Torah. When you boil her after she's a gedayla, so you will boil her l'shem kedushin, now it becomes a marriage minat Torah. So even though you're marrying the sister after the zika of the first woman, the sister already happened, but it doesn't matter. It patters you from the yibum of that sister. That's the shayla over here. So I said the pshat of Rashi in the Gemara, but the Rishonim ask on Rashi, and it's difficult to understand this. How would this marriage turn into a marriage minat Torah automatically? And why should it turn into a marriage minat Torah even retroactively? There's no hezbollah for this. Why should that happen? The first marriage. I mean, the first oifen over here. It's very hard to understand. I mean, the Rishonim all ask on Rashi, what should cause it to all of a sudden become a marriage minat Torah and retroactively? Okay, the Rishonim have a different pshat, but this is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. Amalei, so Rav answers, Haine time de Rabbi Gamliel. The reason for Rabbi Gamliel is Mishum de Kasavar Hamakadesh Achais Yevame. Rabbi Gamliel holds a person that marries a sister to the Yevame that was waiting for him, Nifter Yevame v'Hal Chala. Even though it was after the fact that she was already a Yevame waiting for him, but you married her sister, so now the Yevame becomes totally potter. She's an erva now to be married to you, and she becomes potter. So therefore, you baal in, you loy baal loy. Over here as well, if you will boil her, so then she becomes a gedayla, and now the Yevama will be potter from you, and if not, not. Rav Sheshe said about Rav's answer, Amina, he said, Kinayim v'shachav Rav, Amalah Hashmaita. Rav gave this answer when he was dozing off on and off. He was sort of half asleep when he said this. Why? Because there's a braisa that seems to say the opposite. The Tanya says, Na braisa mekadosh sakatana. Person is mekadosh sakatana, so the braisa uses the lashon kiddusheha tluyin. Her kedushin is now hanging. It will depend if when she becomes a gedayla, and then it could become a full marriage. So what does this mean? My tluyin. What does this term tluyin mean? Lav, don't you think it means that ki godla, when she becomes a gedayla, godla bahada, the marriage automatically matures with her, v'afagav delay bal. Even if her husband wasn't boil her yet, automatically the marriage will mature, and retroactively it'll be a full marriage. Not like Rav said, that it's like a new thing, a new marriage, now when he's boil her. Amalei Ravin Berei Rav Nachman, so Ravin says, no, it's not, even if Rav is right, the lashon of the Braisa could still make sense. Ha milsa, this diktana, this marriage with the ketana, mitlet talya v'kaima, so it is sort of hanging in the air over here. Why? Ibal in, iloy ba'aloi. And it will depend on the husband later when she becomes a gedayla. If he's going to be boil her, so then it'll become a full marriage. And if he's not going to be boil her, it won't become a full marriage. So why does the Braisa say the lashon of tluyin, that it's talui? The amra, because on one hand, she says that I'm not safe in this marriage. Hu adif minoi. He's stronger than me. He could decide to give me a get at any time and send me away. And at the same time also, va'ano adifna minei, and I'm stronger than him. I could decide at any moment to refuse this marriage. So the reason the Braisa uses the term tluyin, that this marriage is hanging, is not because it's hanging depending on when she becomes a gedayla, and when she becomes a gedayla, automatically the marriage will take effect. It's called hanging because any marriage of a ketana is not a safe marriage. He could give her a get, she could walk out of the marriage at any given moment, but it still fits with what Rav said, that even when she becomes a gedayla, it's only if he's boil her that then it becomes a new marriage minat Torah. It doesn't automatically happen, and it doesn't go back retroactively either. Okay, there's a continuation of the inyan. We'll have to leave it for tomorrow.